Awesome. Looks like we have a full house today, so we're going to get started. So again, my name is Stuart Blumenthal with ETHOSystems. I'm happy to welcome you guys to our tips and tricks on change orders today. I'll be holding this one today. Just a couple notes. This presentation is going to be about 30 minutes. All the phone lines are muted, and if you have any questions, please use the questions feature here. Unlike other presentations where we have a lot of PowerPoints, I'll be honest, we have almost no slides today at all. We're going to be focusing primarily just going right into the product and going through some of the configuration and going through some of the setups and field by field. So this was a lot of training, to be honest, because we noticed a lot of clients are not using this to its full potential. So again, that's what we'll be doing today. So basically, yeah, we're going to walk through the process. So let me jump right into the right into Sage, and we're going to go right into there. So we're working the R2 release here, or the R1 release. Just to let you know, there are a few minor changes they made to the change order process in R2 that's being released tomorrow night around 8 p.m. Pacific time. So they've added they're adding a few new features to the change order process, which we went over yesterday in our R2 webinar. By the way, that link is already up on our YouTube channel and it's already up on our website. So we quickly posted that because a lot of clients are going to be affected by that tomorrow. So under the, so first of all, let me go into my general construction company here. And when we're underneath here, you'll see under projects, you'll see an area down here called change management, and you'll see two things called change requests and project change orders. Also, you'll then see project contracts. So it's in that lower area down here. You always have to start off with a change request. So the first thing that I always get is that I'm starting to create a change order, but you have to start off with a change request first. So I'm going to go into here at this point here, and you'll see that I've created some entries, been playing around with this in my system, but we're going to take this to a step further today. Obviously, we're in our list view here at this point here. The goal is that you can use this for a couple different things. One is you can have this affect the costs, which does affect your estimates. So again, if you're using project estimates, which hopefully you are, this will affect that. Then if your estimates are affecting your budgets, that also affects that. It affects that as well. So it's a cascading effect when you use the change request and project change orders from a costing side. If you're using it from a revenue side, that's where it's going to affect the project contracts itself. So that's where it's going to affect the project contract. So again, if you're doing revenue, it's going to affect the contracts. If you're doing cost or cost, the cost will affect the estimates at that point. I'm going to hit add at this point here and bring us into a new screen. So the first thing is the change request ID. I would tell you that a lot of our clients have this set up for auto numbering. So if you create a new one, it will automatically number at that point. So I would recommend using that. You can also just manually type that in. So that is a setup feature within the system, having auto numbering turned on or not. I'm going to use number 8 for today. I'm going to choose my project 2006, my La Quinta in Dallas at this point here. And what is the change request date? That's the date that you want it to all hit. The next feature is what is the status? And one of the things that a lot of people are not using is the different workflows within the system. So you can set these up. These are the built-in workflows in the system of original, forecast, pending change, revision, or approved change. For today's purpose, I am going to hit approve change, which puts the workflows type to approve change over here, which means that it's going to go through the entire system. You can actually have it not affect things by making sure that the status or the workflow is geared to the way you want it to. If you have any questions on that, please talk to your implementer or your consultant or your firm, but that the approval process dictates how it flows throughout the whole system at that point. The change request type, you can put different request types in here. This is a customized field, so you can set up different types. So like, for example, if it came from the field, if it came internally, you can uses a lot of different areas in there. Your description, you can also look at the effective dates of when the price and the cost go into effect. And then we have something called the change request template here. So I don't use it. We have some clients using this, so it says change request summary or change request with entry. So when you print this out, you can choose what type of template, printing out template that you want in here. So this is more if you're going to print out the change request template and then send that off at that point. And then if you're going to send it, it can you can have it pick your contacts and who is this change request going to be sent to. So again, this way of sending it from within the system. I've seen some customization ones that have been customized. This is a basic form. If it needs to be advanced, please, show us what you're wanting to accomplish on there. So what we're going to do now is that at this point here, you can't fill in the project contracts or any of this information right here. But what I'm going to do down here is come to my project at this point here and say, great, I'm going to do this for that project. It's going to ask me which cost code am I hitting. So again, this cost code aspect is the cost associated to it. So I'm going to have this go against pipes. We'll go against my pipes and this one here, we're going to say this is going to be some labor time that we're hitting at this point here. And then it's asking us, what are we decreasing this? So I'm going to just increase this simply by a quantity of 1. We're going to have some costs of $5,000. It takes our total cost there. And then our unit price, I'm going to make 10,000. So we're going to make the monies. So we're increasing both the estimate as well as the contract from this change request at this point here. So again, you can set the change request status to go from, you can change those statuses and that's how it's going to affect. Or if I was to post this now, it means that's an approved change order that will start affecting the system, and I'll show you that in a moment. I can also move this into draft mode if I wanted to. The other thing to show here is that this is the estimate that it's linking to. That estimate is because the reason why it's hitting that estimate initially, or the only one that's allowed to, is that's the primary estimate that's in the system. So if I was to click on this estimate here at this point, it brings me into that screen. And the reason why it's showing up under here is that it's marked as right underneath here as the primary. It's marked as the primary one, and it's integrated to the general ledger. So that's why it's showing up in here. Sorry, it's primary right there. Sorry, I was looking for that box. So at this point here, I am going to hit the good old post button, and it is going to put it in my list here at this one right at this point. You can then print or email this out. So again, if I had that set up for the printing, because I didn't put a specific document in there, it did not like that. So if you wanted to put a specific document, I can come in here, change my change request with entries, hit post at this point here. Now, if I come here to print this out, and now it's not giving me the message. I didn't have anyone in the senders. That's why that's not filling out. Hit the OK button. And again, these are basic ones that are done in Word. They can be formatted to your specific needs. Any questions on the change request screen first? So what we just did was we created the change request. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually create the actual change order, the project change order at this point here. So if I look at my project change orders, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new one at this point. Now, I will be honest, the screen has a couple uniquenesses to it. So just keep this in mind when you're creating these. So the first one it's asked me is the change order ID. I'm going to make it the same as the other one just so I keep my numbers consistent. That's why I prefer to do that. I'm going to bring my project in again to 0006. At this point here, it copies over the change order, the project change order date. I'm going to put in today's date as the effective date at this point here. I can put a description. And again, that same template there at that point. By the way, why is mine tripling up or doubling up on the other screen? It's because I have multiple templates out there that are named the same thing. This is demo data. So someone kind of messed up the data. So I do apologize for the triple seeing the same thing 3 times. When you're going here, this is pulling the send to contact based upon the customer that this is associated to. And now the next thing is, this is the billing item. So again, if you're using project contracts, what are we actually building against? So I'm going to put this against the masonry line there. So that's what we're going to be billing against. It then asks me which contract am I pulling this against, which contract am I pulling this against, and I can say which line am I going against the project contract. So again, this is the billing, this is the line, and this is the contract at this point here. And again, the important thing to put is what is the status here. So I'm going to put down an approved change. If I did have any documents or attachments, I could put that here at this point. Now, you come here and you go, great, I'm going to add a line here at this point, and you're going to get a message saying that you need to save this first. You need to post this. So it's a little bit weird, but you say, okay, and I'm going to set post. I'm now going to come back into here at this point here and hit edit. And I can now select that information. And it looks like I got a couple of questions here. So what I'm going to do is, can the change request auto-populate the change order? Auto-populate the change order. So if I had, because I have to choose the change request down here, because you can have multiple change requests associated to one change order, project change order. So what we're doing is we're going to pull the change request into here at this point. Hopefully that makes sense. So that I think hopefully I answered your question. And then is the posting change order posting to is the posting change order posting change order posting to the estimate drives the change request status? If so, does it make I'll have to read that one over. There seems to be a little typo in there. Is the project change order posting to the estimate drives the change request status? If so, does it only post to the estimates when it's? So I think the question is, I'll explain that in a second. I think driven by the change request status. No, it's driven by, this one is driven by the change request status. Yes, that is correct. So if I hit select at this point here, it's going to show me all the ones that I could bring in. So again, I can have multiple change requests coming into one project change order. So you might have someone who's sending a bunch of them in, you're consolidating them down, again, based upon your workflow. That might be a better way. So I'm going to hit select here and say add selected and close. At this point here, it brings that one line in at that point, ties it to the contract at this point here. And if I hit post at this point here, it has made that change. So I'm going to take you through what did it just do in the system here. So there's a lot that it just did. So the first thing is that if I go to my project estimates here in the system, I know that I was looking at number 71 because, to be honest, that's the only one for this specific project anyway. But what I'm going to do is come into my entries at this, or to edit at this point here. And what you'll see is that I've got my estimate entries at the top here, but then down below, you'll see that it just created today this entry, change request number 8, the one I just did there, for $5,000. So you'll see, yes, I was playing around and doing some other lines on it, but I've got $11,000. So if I was to look at my total estimate here, if I was to take this number here, which is 1,888 plus 11, that should be 1,899. That's my total new estimate up there at that point. The other thing that's important is that, again, this was added to the system here. So the ability to add this and post this specifically to a budget. So what it's going to do then is that if I went and looked at my budget in the general ledger, you will see the 1,899 as well at the general ledger level, because we told it that it's the posting this to the primary budget feature, or primary budget ID at that point. I'm going to hit save. Done with that one. Looks good. Now, the other thing that it just did was that it went through, and if I looked at my project contracts at this point here, hit the good old edit button at this point here, I could now go down to my lines, and what you'll see, and what I did here, yours might not look exactly like this. I purposely put in the approved change price into my grid lines down here. And I'll show you that in a second. What I can now do is hit edit on this line here. And if I come down here, I can see there's my $10,000 that has been linked change request entries, and it's now been linked to that line. And again, it's gone into the approved change price right here. One thing to keep in mind is that there's a lot of information in this area here down here. So if you click on show details, you can start seeing other things like what was the original price, and you know, what was the sorry, I'm looking for the revised, which I already pulled out there. So if I wanted to, I can drag some of these back to the main screen. The way you can do that at this point here is that, so if I wanted to, I can say more actions, edit, project, contract line layouts from within here. And so if I wanted to, I can say, you know what, let's take the original price, which I'm going to do, and I'm going to bring that right up there, and I'm going to hit save layout. And now you'll see that if I look here, I've got my 3,500, I got my approved change price, and my total revised price here. So I added these two columns for my purposes to make this easier to work with at that point. Also, if I would have come to here and I just hit the lines, I could see it, this right here, total revised price. So this presents it a little bit differently. Instead of having to scroll all the way down, I could see it in here in this little grid. And since this is a view, I can actually modify this view to show the other columns as well. So we've got some flexibility in terms of that overall process. So now, if I was to go ahead and build this, for example, I'm just going to quickly generate the invoice for this one based upon the project contracts, for example, take my contract to La Quinta, bill it through today, and just hit preview at this point here. We should get the $13,500 that we had from a billing aspect here and our approved changes. The other reason you want to do this is that if you're producing the AIA bill, this is now going to show up. So my original price, my approved changes, my total here on that AIA bill on the 702 front page there, it will show the approved changes for the period. And that's why we wanted to have it flow this way. So when we produce our AIA billing, it will show correctly at that point. If we were to do a purchase order or a subcontract or some type of commitment, I would see the $5,000 increased on that one specific line. So just FYI, we have your revenue and your costs that flow to two different areas within the system from the one screen. So the question came in: if I choose existing cost code to change to a change order, in your example, take that one, how will it affect the project estimate? Is it going to be a second line or added to the amounts of the existing? So it's going to add it, it's going to add it, or sorry, it will not create a second line. It will, what it's going to do, sorry, I'm just making sure I say this right. What it's going to do is it's going to add it to that line at that point, so of that estimate. What if you're adding project contracts line? So it's a great question there. So one of the other things we can do regarding that question is, some people like changing line, like adding line. So for example, we have the ability for project contract line. Now, one of the things here that I like in this little tip and trick here, two things. One is that notice that I can choose I can update this. So if I went, oh, that's really not the line that it should be going to, I want to go to a different line, I am able to still do that and make changes to that. You're locked once you do any billing. Let me state that again for the record, because I know I had one client that was, once you make a change, once you do a billing, then it locks it down. Haven't done a bill yet, haven't created my contract invoice, so that's why I'm still able to do this. The other thing that I'm able to do here is that I can add a new contract line from right here. So it makes it a lot easier. So I can create a new contract line. So I know that if you wanted to create a contract line, like, well, let's just do it. Like, for example, I have some people that do like a C01 or a 99, whatever you do there, you can create another line down below and then add this, have the change orders go to a specific new contract line instead of an existing one. So great question. I forgot to mention that. Thank you very much on that question there. When the change request is connected to the change order, can it be edited? So the other thing is that if I came in here again, this can be changed. I'm gonna hit cancel because I don't want to save the changes. If I go back to the change request at this point here, you will see that it is pretty much locked down. The only thing it's pretty much locked down. You can add an attachment, you can change the request type, but it is locked down at this point here. So it locks that at that point there. And again, once I do a billing on this line, this area, this next section would actually be locked down further because I've now done a billing against that. If I've done a billing at that point, it locks it at that point. Great questions. Hopefully I've answered them. If I did not, I'm going to say, please ask. So how do I back out a change request line or just the request? So great question there. So if you created this by mistake, for example, one of the things you can do is that, again, I'm in the project change order. I can scroll over to the right here. I might not have seen it because of the way my screen was. I can actually delete this. So what you would have to actually do is if I actually was to delete this at this point here, which let's just go ahead and have a little bit of fun. I delete that. I can now come back to my change request. And since I've now unlinked that at this point here, I could actually, if I wanted to, delete this. And at this point here, I have now fully backed that out. Again, I have not billed anything for that. So the question is, can you bypass the whole request and go straight to entering the change order? So the answer is no. You have to go through the request and then through the change order. So I apologize for that. That's it is a two-step process. So great question, Judy, but sorry about that. Great questions there. So with all that, then what would happen is that we've got a request in there. We would actually be able to do, as I said, we could actually do create a purchase order, subcontract against that line. It goes against that estimate. We can start looking at our estimate versus our estimated cost versus our actual cost. That should update your committed cost report, all the different things throughout the system. So I would tell you that if you want to, some people have just been going in and creating you can't. Do you need to do it this way? No, you could just go right into, I'll leave it on this note. You can just go into project estimates. If I really wanted to, I can add another line in here. But again, this starts getting locked down as you start getting the project done. So it is recommended that you do the change request because that's the way that they want you to do it in Intacct. But you could just theoretically just add another line in here if you wanted to and make that original. There are a few things you can do once, and it looks like mine is not going to let me because, again, we've started doing some billings. Oh, I can actually come here, sorry, the last one, and I could actually add, different, like a revision or forecast up here. But again, we do recommend using the change request feature down below in the bottom area. A lot of participation today, which is awesome. Question about Procore and when they might be able to, when they're going to integrate the change order process with the ERP. I have not gotten information on that. I know that they are two things on here. One is that with Procore, they are adding some features with each of the quarterly releases. So again, on the roadmap is the AR and Prime invoices. I don't know the status of the change process. We are actually on June 6th of next month. We're having Procore do a presentation on the integration. So I would highly recommend contacting them or being part of that webinar and asking that question in the meantime. Also, just so you know, it was a cool thing that Sage just this last week released just acquired a company called Corecon, which is a project management solution, a cloud-based project management solution, and that is going to be brought in and being part of the Sage cloud product. So it's going to be, they're going to be rebranding that to be Sage Project Management, and we're really excited to see that acquisition this last week and what we saw in terms of where they're going with that. Look for that near the end of the year. They're going to have some really cool stuff that's coming out with Sage Project Management. That is not to say that Procore is going away. Procore is a specific partner with Sage, and so again, those integrations are going to be really tight. But I do recommend attending our June 6th webinar, but that Procore will be part of. Next question: Can a change be entered in the SOV as I having to reflect the revised contract amount before the contract? So yeah, I mean, you can go in and change the SOV if you want to, but again, you're going to lose. Again, by not using the change request feature, you're going to lose that in the AIA bill, they approve change orders and how it all flows through the whole system. So you can just change the SOV. I don't recommend it for those purposes if you're printing out the 702 and 703. And the next question is, if I have an estimated if I have a sale estimate as a primary and I add two-step change orders, the price will be added to the sales estimate. How about the cost? And should I go into the cost and add the cost manually? I'm going to have to. I'm gonna have to look at that one. To be honest, I'll have to run that one through all the way. If I have a sales estimate and it's a primary and I add two-step change orders, the price will. So again, if you're adding the cost, as long as you add, let me put it this way, in the change requests. In the change request, if you add anything to the cost here, and again, it's an approved change, that will flow back to the estimate at that point based upon this right here. If it's just in the price, it will not affect the estimate. The cost affects what the estimate is. Hopefully that answers your question there. So a couple last things through the for reminders, and again, I'll stay on if there's questions here. The R2 release will be tomorrow, 8 p.m. Pacific time. So time to get out of the system and make sure, and it will be, if there's any issues, please obviously let us know. We're planning on, like every other release, where Sage has a team that takes care of any issues. We monitor, make sure that our employees, our clients are all good. But you know, with each release, as we've seen, they go pretty flawlessly. Upcoming trainings, webinars. So on June 6th, we have Procore, as I mentioned, 12 p.m. Central Time. Later that week, I know it's kind of crazy, but we've got two right before everyone, we're hoping before the summer vacations, on purchase order approvals, tips and tricks on the 8th. The following month, we'll be doing our real estate tips and tricks. That will be put on by the Sage real estate team. And then on the 17th of August, we're going to be going over accounts payable and general ledger approval tips and tricks. It is different because the purchase approval is different than the general ledger and accounts payable approval. So we felt like we could break that into two sessions. And then on the 17th or the 14th of September, we'll be going over Intacct bank feeds and going through that entire process on how that works, since we have a lot of clients have been requesting that process. So everyone's been able to use the questions feature throughout this here. So I really appreciate everyone doing that. I think we answered all the questions throughout the whole process. If I missed anyone again, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I just want to thank everyone for today's time. Hopefully it was well worth it. And again, definitely recommend using this process moving forward.